Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are going behind the scenes of something you use every single day. Google search.
Yeah.
Have you ever wondered how Google actually finds all those websites?
It's a pretty fascinating process, actually, and we're going to unpack how this little digital explorer called Googlebot crawls the web.
Crawling.
Yeah, it's kind of like a spider spinning a web.
Okay.
But for information,
Sounds a little creepy.
it's not creepy at all. Think of it this way.
Okay.
Imagine a library with billions of books
Right.
constantly being added to and updated.
Yeah.
That's the internet.
Okay.
And Googlebot is like the super organized librarian, making sure all those books are in the right place and easy to find.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not just sitting back waiting for us to search for something.
Right.
It's actively out there.
Absolutely.
Like hunting down new content.
Exactly. It's constantly on the move, following links from one page to the next, downloading content, and building this massive map of the web
Oh, well.
that Google search uses to deliver you the most relevant results.
So it's like Googlebot is creating this
Yeah.
giant index of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the card catalog in a library.
Precisely.
Right.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
It's not just about finding those basic HTML web pages anymore.
Right.
The modern web is a lot more dynamic and interactive,
Yeah.
with tons of images and videos and even fancy JavaScript code.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Websites are so much more than just plain text these days.
Exactly. They're like these mini applications with all sorts of cool features and functionality.
Yeah. So how does Googlebot actually do that?
Well,
Does it just have like a superpower web browser that can load and understand everything?
it's a multi-step process that involves something called the Web Rendering Service, or WRS.
Okay.
Think of WRS as Googlebot's sidekick.
Okay.
It helps Googlebot actually see the web page the way we do in our browsers with all the bells and whistles.
Okay, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Can you break it down for me step by step?
Sure. So first, Googlebot downloads the initial HTML of the page.
Okay.
This is kind of like the blueprint of the website, laying out the basic structure and content.
Got it.
Next, Googlebot hands that raw HTML over to the WRS.
Okay.
The WRS then uses a fresh Googlebot to download all the other stuff.
Yeah.
JavaScript, CSS, images, videos, all the things that make a website look and function the way it does.
So it's like Googlebot fetches the ingredients and then the WRS cooks up the meal.
You got it. Once the WRS has all the pieces, it
Yeah.
puts them together just like your browser would.
Wow.
So it can understand not only what's on the page, but how it actually works.
I never realized there was so much going on behind the scenes.
It is.
It's like a whole secret world of web crawling and rendering.
Right. And this all brings us to something really important for anyone with a website:
Okay.
crawl budget.
Crawl budget. Is that like how much money Google spends crawling my site?
Not exactly. It's more about the amount of time and resources Googlebot can dedicate to crawling each website.
Okay.
Think of it like a limited supply of energy.
So if my website is well organized and efficient, Googlebot can crawl more of it with that limited energy.
Exactly. The more efficiently your site uses resources, the more Googlebot can understand and potentially show in search results.
Got it.
And the Google Search Central blog has some great tips
Okay.
on how to maximize your crawl budget.
I am all ears. Give me those tips.
All right. So the first is to simply use fewer resources to deliver a great experience.
Yeah.
The fewer files Googlebot has to download, the more of your website it can crawl with this limited budget.
Makes it keep it lean and mean, right?
Exactly. Next up,
Okay.
be cautious with something called cache busting parameter.
Tech jargon alert.
Don't worry, it's not that complicated.
Okay.
These are little bits of code added to URLs that force your browser to download the latest version of a file,
Okay.
even if you already have a copy stored.
Okay. Sounds helpful, but why is that a problem for Googlebot?
Well, if those URLs change frequently,
Right.
Googlebot keeps seeing them as brand new pages, even if the content's the same.
Oh.
It wastes crawl budget recrawling stuff that hasn't changed.
So stick with stable URLs whenever possible.
You got it. The last tip is to think about where you host things like images and videos.
Okay.
You might want to consider using a separate host name.
Okay. Interesting. Why would he do that?
Well, it can help shift some of that crawl budget burden off of your main site.
Okay.
But there's a recent update to this strategy.
Okay.
It turns out that hosting really important stuff like your JavaScript and CSS on a separate host name
Right.
can slow down how fast your website loads for visitors.
So it's like a balancing act.
It is,
A separate host name for big videos might be okay,
right?
But not for the core files that make the site run smoothly.
Exactly. You don't want to accidentally hurt your website's performance in the process.
This is great. Now, I'm curious, is there a way to see what Googlebot is actually doing on MYY website?
There are a couple ways. Your website's access logs are like a detailed record of every visit, including Googlebot.
Wait, so I can actually see every time Googlebot drops by?
Yep. You'll see the URL it requested, the time, and even the IP address. Yeah. Google publishes a list of their crawler IP ranges, so you can use that to filter your logs and see what Googlebot is up to.
Cool, but I have a feeling those logs might be a bit overwhelming.
They can be.
Is there a more user-friendly option?
Absolutely. Google Search Console has a report called Crawl Stats.
Okay.
It's much easier to digest.
Okay.
It shows you how many resources Googlebot downloaded and even breaks it down by different Googlebots, ImageBot, VideoBot, and so on.
That sounds really helpful. I'm starting to feel like I can actually understand this whole crawling thing now.
It definitely takes some time to wrap your head around it, but it's worth the effort.
Yeah.
Understanding how Googlebot sees your website is crucial for getting found in search results.
Okay, so we've talked about crawling.
Yes.
But I know there's more to Google search than just finding the pages.
Yeah,
right?
You're right. Crawling is just the first step in a 3-stage process. Okay. After crawling comes indexing and then finally serving those search results. Yeah.
So it's like a relay race.
Yeah.
Googlebot finds the page, passes it to the indexer, and then the search engine serves up the results.
Perfect analogy.
Mm-hmm.
So during indexing, Google really digs into what the page is all about.
Okay.
It analyzes the content checks for duplicates and then stores all that info in a massive database.
That database must be gigantic.
It's mind-blowing. We're talking billions of web pages.
Okay, and then what about serving search results? That's where all the SEO magic happens, right?
You got it. That's where Google considers hundreds of factors to decide which results to show and in what order.
Okay.
They're trying to make sure you see the most relevant, high-quality, and trustworthy results for your search.
So just because Googlebot finds my page doesn't mean it's guaranteed to show up in the search results?
Nope, not at all. It's all about how well your page matches what the searcher is looking for and how user-friendly and trustworthy it is.
This has given me a much better understanding of how Google search actually works.
Good.
But I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
About Googlebot not just crawling HTML anymore.
Right.
Why is it so important for Googlebot to understand those other resources like JavaScript and images?
It's all about understanding the full picture. You know, a lot of websites rely on JavaScript to load content dynamically,
right?
Which means that content isn't always visible in that initial HTML.
So if Googlebot couldn't see those dynamic elements, it would be missing a huge part of the website.
Exactly. It would be like trying to understand a movie by just looking at a few still images.
Right.
You get the general idea, but you'd miss the action, the dialogue, the music, the special effects, everything that makes the movie come alive.
And Google needs to see the whole picture to accurately rank websites and deliver the best search results.
Absolutely. The more Googlebot understands about a web page, its content, its functionality, its user experience, the better it can determine its relevance and quality.
This is really making me think differently about my own website.
Good.
I need to make sure Googlebot can easily access and understand all those different elements.
That's the key.
Yeah.
And the way those elements are implemented can have a big impact on how effectively Googlebot can crawl and index your site.
Okay, give me an example. How could I mess things up without realizing it?
Let's say you have a website with a lot of large, beautiful images.
Guilty as charged. High-quality visuals are essential for my business.
I get it. But if those images aren't optimized for web performance, they can take forever to load, even with a good internet connection.
And if Googlebot has to wait around for those images to load, it's wasting precious crawl budget.
Exactly.
Right.
It might not be able to crawl as many pages on your site as it could if those images were smaller and faster to load.
So what can I do to make Googlebot happy and make sure my images don't slow it down?
It's all about finding that right balance between visual quality and file size. Make sure your images are properly sized for the web and compressed to reduce their file size without sacrificing too much quality.
So it's like packing for a trip. You want to bring everything you need, but you don't want to overpack and weigh yourself down.
Perfect analogy. And there are lots of tools and techniques to help you optimize images for the web.
This is all starting to make so much sense. It's like a whole new world of SEO is opening up to me.
It is a journey of discovery.
Yeah.
And the more you learn about how search engines work, the better you can optimize your website to get found by the right audience.
Okay, so we've talked about optimizing resources like images.
Right.
But what about those cache-busting parameters we discussed earlier?
Yeah.
Can those really have a big impact on crawl budget?
Absolutely, especially if they're used excessively or incorrectly.
Just to refresh everyone's memory, what are those again?
They're those little snippets of code added to URLs that force browsers to download the latest version of a file. They essentially bypass the browser's cache, which is where your browser stores frequently accessed files to speed up loading times.
So why are they called cache busting?
Because they break through the cache,
Got
they ensure that you're always seeing the most up-to-date version of a file, which is important for things like style sheets and JavaScript files that might change frequently during website development.
Okay, I get it. But how can they hurt my SEO?
Well, if those parameters are constantly changing, Googlebot sees it as a brand new URL every time.
Right.
Even if the underlying content is the same, it wastes precious time and resources crawling the same content over and over again.
That's like reading the same chapter of a book over and over again, hoping it'll be different each time.
Exactly. A complete waste of time and crawl budget. So use cache-busting parameters sparingly and strategically, only when absolutely necessary.
Got it. So we've covered optimizing resources and cache-busting parameters. What else can I do to keep Googlebot happy and crawling my website effectively?
We haven't talked much about robots.txt, which is a powerful tool for controlling how search engines interact with your website.
Ah, yes, robots.txt.
Yeah.
I've heard the name, but I'll admit I don't really understand what it's all about.
It's basically a set of instructions for web crawlers, like Googlebot.
Okay.
You can tell them which parts of your website they're allowed to access and which parts they should avoid.
So it's like a virtual bouncer deciding who gets into the VIP section of my website.
I like that analogy.
Okay.
You can use it to block access to pages that are under construction, contain sensitive information, or are just not that relevant to search results.
Makes sense. I wouldn't want Google indexing a half-finished page.
Right.
We're accidentally revealing confidential data.
Exactly. It helps focus your crawl budget on the content that really matters.
Okay.
But like any powerful tool, you need to use it carefully.
Right.
Blocking the wrong pages can actually hurt your SEO.
Oh, no. What are some common mistakes to avoid?
One big mistake is accidentally blocking pages that you actually want Google to index.
Okay.
Like your product pages or blog posts.
If those are blocked, they won't show up in search results.
Yikes, that would be a nightmare.
Another mistake is blocking resources like JavaScript or CSS files.
Okay.
Googlebot needs those to fully understand the page, so blocking them can lead to indexing issues.
So robots.txt is a powerful tool.
It is.
But it's important to use it wisely.
Absolutely. If you're not sure how to use it correctly, it's best to consult with an SEO expert.
Great advice. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, but there's one last question I think it's on a lot of people's minds.
Okay.
How often does Googlebot actually crawl my website? Is it like every day, every week?
That's a great question, but there's no easy answer. Crawling frequency depends on a bunch of factors.
Like what?
One factor is how often you update your website.
Okay.
If you're constantly publishing new content or making changes, Googlebot will visit more often to keep its index up to date.
Makes sense. The fresher the content, the more Googlebot wants to check it out.
Another factor is the popularity and authority of your website. So if my website is already popular and well-respected, Googlebot will crawl it more frequently.
Exactly. It wants to make sure its index has the latest and greatest content from authoritative sources.
So it's kind of a virtuous cycle. The more Googlebot crawls my site, the more opportunities I have to get my content indexed and attract more visitors, which can lead to even more frequent crawling.
You got it. It's all connected.
This is so fascinating. I'm starting to realize that SEO is less about trying to trick Google and more about working with Google to help them understand and appreciate my website.
That's the perfect mindset.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, but I'm sure our listeners still have a ton of questions about Googlebot and crawling. It's a huge topic, but hopefully we've sparked your curiosity and given you a good starting point.
Yeah, we've just scratched the surface today, but hopefully this gives you a much better understanding of how Googlebot works.
Right.
And how crucial it is to your website's success.
It's like we've peeked behind the curtain and seen the wizard working the controls.
Exactly. It's really fascinating how much happens behind the scenes before we even type a search query. Right. Googlebot is like this tireless worker bee constantly buzzing around the web, collecting information, making sure Google search has the freshest content.
It's amazing to think about all those bots out there constantly crawling and indexing this vast expanse of the internet.
Yeah.
It's like they're building this massive, ever-growing library of human knowledge.
And just like a librarian carefully catalogs each book, Googlebot is meticulously indexing all those web pages, trying to understand what they're about and who might find them useful.
Now, here's something I've always been curious about. How does Google decide which pages deserve to be on the top shelf, so to speak?
Right.
We've talked about relevance and quality, but how does that actually translate into rankings?
Well, it's a bit of a secret sauce, isn't it?
Right.
Google doesn't reveal all the ingredients in their ranking algorithms, but we do know they take hundreds of factors into account.
Hundreds. Wow, that's a lot to keep track of.
It is. But at the end of the day, it boils down to this: Google wants to provide the best possible experience for its users.
Right.
So when you search for something, they want to make sure you find the most relevant, informative, and trustworthy results.
So it's not just about stuffing your website with keywords. It's about creating genuine value for your visitors.
Right.
It's about answering their questions, solving their problems.
Yeah.
Or simply entertaining them.
Exactly. It's about building a website that people actually want to visit and spend time on a website that provides a positive user experience.
So in a way, SEO is about aligning your goals with Google's goals. You want people to find your website, and Google wants to help them find the best possible information.
That's a great way to put it. And the more you understand how Googlebot works and what Google is looking for, the better you can optimize your website to meet those needs.
This has been an incredible deep dive. It's amazing how much we've uncovered just from a few blog posts and some documentation.
Yeah.
It really makes you appreciate the complexity of the internet and the incredible technology that powers it.
Absolutely. And I think it also highlights the importance of staying informed and keeping up with the latest developments in SEO.
Right.
Google is constantly evolving, so we need to be ready to adapt our strategies accordingly.
So if you're feeling inspired to learn more about Googlebot and how to optimize your website, where should you go?
Well, the Google Search Central blog is a fantastic resource, as we've mentioned. They regularly publish articles on all sorts of SEO topics, from crawling and indexing to technical SEO and content strategy.
And don't forget about Google Search Console. That's a powerful tool that can give you insights into how Googlebot is interacting with your website.
Absolutely. Use it to monitor your crawl stats, identify any indexing issues, and even submit your sitemap to Google.
Well, I think this deep dive has given us a lot to think about. What sparked your interest? What will you explore further? Let us know, and maybe it will be the focus of a future deep dive. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more fascinating explorations of the digital world. This has been another podcast by whatofco.com. See you next time.